Hi, and welcome back to Global Molecule. My name is Ramsey Jordan. Thanks for tuning in again. Today we're discussing narcissism, painful truths, hard truths, real truths, about why you might attract a narcissistic partner, what are narcissistic traits, responsibility or victim mindset, law of attraction, and mirroring. How do I know all these things? Well, I had back-to-back toxic relationships, and they were a massive stimulus for my inner awakening to know myself. It's one thing to be able to see through the veil of society, to see that the media is full of this and that, and people are saying whatever you want to hear to get whatever they want. But it's a totally other game to see the depths of your soul, yourself, your pain, your patterns, your programs, your belief systems, your perspectives, and your unresolved issues. Let's throw in some blocked emotions just for good measure. I lived two extremely stressful relationships back to back. The first one also being physically abusive. So why did I stay? Why would anyone stay? And the simple answer is because being alone is more scary than living a nightmare with someone else. You have to be, let me find the right word, bravely and courageously honest with yourself. Step out of denial and look at those voices, look at those feelings, look at your situation when you're really alone, in a room, not knowing what to do, where to go, who to call. That disconnect, that loneliness. Yeah, you know that. You remember now. That's the foundation to which you are attracting a narcissistic partner. Not because they're evil, not because they're bad, but it's a vibrational point of attraction where their behavior plays into yours so you can see yourself, what you believe love is, what you believe you deserve to be treated like, and what a relationship is. It's exposing your belief systems, your patterns, and your dire lack of self-love or inner connection. How do I know? Once again, that was me. 100% me. So the better you know yourself, the better you know everyone else, because we're not all that different other than the details on the surface. What you might look like, what you might sound like when you talk, your personality, your sense of humor, your ability to cover up your truth in more charismatic ways than others. But deep down in the core, we all have the same emotions and we all suffer the same traumas to different degrees. Unless you manifested some miraculous new emotion that no one else has, or a miraculously new situation that nobody's ever lived, we're all the same inside. So what happens when you attract a narcissistic partner is you ignore the red flags. That couldn't have been, no, that wasn't them, that's not right. Just go back through your own mental library and see all the different times when you just brushed aside things that were like, whoa, where anyone else who really loved themselves, a strong, independent person with healthy ties, healthy relationships, would have walked right away that second. They would have said, no way, bye. That is not good enough for me. That's self-loving. So if you're lonely and disconnected and emotionally starved, depressed, yes, that all means depression. You're going to allow behavior that others would never allow into their lives. And those dynamics develop, they exaggerate as the years go by. You're allowing behaviors saying that's allowed in my life, and the longer you allow it, the more it cements itself. Your responsibility to step up your own self-love, to find out why it is you allow abusive talk, controlling behavior, attention seeking, lying, cheating, betrayals, abandonment. Your work is to find out why you believe that is a decent life and why you're not working to transform it. If you watch Facebook Reels, TikTok videos, which appear on Facebook Reels, that's where I see them, or Instagram videos, which I still don't have, but I know they're there because it's all the same circuit, you're going to see thousands of videos enabling the codependent, enabling the partner of the narcissistic partner or the person with narcissistic traits, which is what I prefer to call them. We all have narcissistic traits. And if I thought I was purely the codependent in my last two relationships, that's insane. I also have narcissistic traits. I was a performance artist, for God's sake. We can perform from different places, but at the time, yeah, it was all about me. Enabling the codependent, enabling that person to believe that they were the victim of a terrible person, you learn nothing. You are the victim of circumstance. Universe is all separated and disjointed. No one knows how this person came into my life, why I let them stay there for 5 years and run rampant, la 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 la. I'm just a stupid, innocent, unconscious, powerless, helpless victim. No, you're not. You just don't want to know what your responsibility is. That you would allow that level of torment into your life and be responsible for it because you didn't have the power to say no. You didn't have the power to say, I deserve better. You were too lonely, too depressed, too disconnected, too many belief systems that they will change or I will change them or I will be happy when, which is all externalizing your power to make a choice now. This is all exposing your core beliefs, your wounds, your perspectives, your patterns, your dynamics. And yes, you are responsible for allowing torture, emotional torture, into your life. That's the hard-hitting stuff. So now let's look at how I transformed my life and maybe how you can transform yours to step out of such debilitating, stressful, time-consuming, and uncomfortable life situations. You're being given an opportunity to grow. You've been given an opportunity to see yourself. And in this particular case of mirroring, it is cryptic because you probably don't behave like your partner or ex-partner. So how can the mirror represent you if you don't behave like them? I like to think of it like this, like two different keys that fit perfectly into each other. If that's your partner and that's you, you're not mirroring in this case where there would be like constant, like, oh, those two are so similar, it's crazy. You know, something like that. It's more like that, where you're not banging your heads against each other like two alpha males or two deer in a field, but more an enmeshment of sorts, a kind of merging, blending of two personalities that create dynamics. Dynamics that play into each other and exaggerate and cement themselves over time. So while somebody is screaming and hurling abuse or controlling and this and that and the other, you're submissive, passive, forgiving, delusional, accepting, and in denial. That's the mirroring. It's showing you how you react to terrible behavior. I mean, it is terrible, but it's actually, as Marshall G. Rosenberg from Nonviolent Communication would say, it's a suicidal attempt to get to meet an unmet need. A narcissist is just expressing in an extremely immature way their need for attention, their need to be seen, to be loved, to be approved of, and so on. That's where they are at. Now, you have a choice to leave them at it. See you later. Ciao. Have a nice day. Good luck with that. Or you stay and suffer and argue and suppress your feelings, repress your feelings, and fall into this powerless, helpless victim, complaining about your partner, moaning every day, seeking all of this sympathy from everyone to empower your victim, to support your mental story that you are powerless in this situation. So let's find your power. The first step has to be a reconnection to yourself. To face those demons when you are alone in a space where you feel desperate, lonely, sad, disjointed, depressed. Because if you're searching for a partner is coming from a moving away from those feelings, what do you think you're going to get through the law of attraction? You're going to have all of that compounded. Now you're going to have a relationship where all of those feelings are now pushed into your life directly through what we call a narcissist, which is actually your perfect mirror. Now all of these inner wounds are being exposed, and you scream at the mirror quietly by complaining to all of your friends about how terrible this person is, while you're allowing it, while you're staying. If there is genuine fear for your life, different story. But in most situations, you're an argument away or a breakup away from freeing yourself. Maybe a glass is smashed or something. Maybe, you're screaming your heads off at each other and it's ugly. But you can walk away from that. Shaken, but you're walking away. And I'll tell you why you don't do that. And the biggest clue for me was discovering how I react to having my guilt buttons triggered. Because it's guilt and the block to feeling it that is keeping so many trapped in relationships that don't serve them, and jobs and family, all it actually goes through everything. But today we're discussing narcissism. If every time somebody screams at you and yells at you, they get a reaction or a specific behavior, desirable behavior, that's what they're going to learn that they can do to get whatever it is they want. And they've been doing that now for as long as your relationship has been going, and you've been playing into that dynamic your whole life. Now it's coming across in your romantic relationships, and instead of sitting still, feeling your guilt triggered in your body, listening to the guilt, saying, do I feel comfortable around this person? Is this person nourishing me? Do I feel safe? Do I feel loved? No, you're still in your old self-preservation program, which is in this instance to do anything except feel guilt, which could be to spring into action, to be helpful, useful, caring, or it could be to argue, scream, yell, blame, whatever it is, to externalize your responsibility so that you're not sitting with your feelings. Could do a whole episode or series on blocked guilt and the ego. But in brief, your ego always wants you to feel good, in control, superior, better, more, and correct. Guilt insinuates the opposite. You're guilty, there's something wrong with you, you're bad. So over years and years and years of unconscious parenting and the lack of emotional intelligence, guilt becomes impossible for us to relate to feel, to identify with. So guilt is heavily, heavily, heavily pushed down and not identified with in the story of the ego. So when guilt is triggered, the self-preservation mechanisms of the ego spring into action, and that will be your reaction to the trigger, whatever it is you developed. And that's what's playing you into your relationship with the narcissist. or the person with narcissistic traits, and that's why you're not leaving, because every time your guilt is triggered, you play into the dynamic. And you're doing it without realizing. You think it's who you are. There is no gap, there is no space between the event and your reaction. I know this because I've seen it in myself, and it's amazing. Because when you do finally not react, the feelings you will feel are extremely overwhelming, and they're yours. And your ego doesn't want to know they're yours, but your soul does. So you need to know how the ego works. You need to outsmart your ego, outsmart your mirror, welcome your mirror, because the only reason the narcissist is there is to show you that you're that blocked, because so are they, so that you can now receive a torrent of vocal abuse, perhaps, blame, controlling behavior, judgment, all their projections, and then not react and feel yourself, because that's the trigger you need to reconnect yourself with your emotions. Sounds horrible, but it's true. They're a messenger to you, to your lost parts. Sit there and feel and ask yourself, am I safe? First of all, you're safe to feel these emotions, yes. But what I'm trying to say is, if this person is constantly triggering these feelings in you, first of all, reintegrate them. And second of all, ask yourself, what, this is all this person actually triggers in me. Perhaps their work is done, because you don't want people in your life that are constantly making you feel uncomfortable. But as long as you keep springing into dynamics and reactions, you don't see the door. You don't see the way out. And that's why you're still sticking there. Oh, and there's one more final thing which no one who is still unconscious as to their point of attraction with narcissistic relationships will like. No one will get it. And there will be a lot of hate for this. Because everybody, right, wants to be the victim. Oh, they were so horrible, they were so controlling, they were so abusive, rah, 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 rah. There's one reason why people stay. And that's because you get to be the good guy. Remember how the ego always wants to position itself as good, correct, and superior, better, and more. Well, if your partner's this terrible person, who are you by default? That's the trick of the ego, that you feel so bad about yourself. And you attract a relationship that mirrors and compounds and cements these feelings that you now blame on the other person because you don't want to take responsibility for them as your own. And to feel better about yourself, you position yourself as the good one because they're a terrible narcissist. This dissolves you of ever having to face your responsibilities, that your emotional blocks are your responsibility, your unresolved stories, traumas, are your responsibility, and your work is your responsibility. It's all yours. So to devoid yourself from the responsibility of needing to wake up to the reality that you are creating, that you are manifesting, unconsciously and consciously, you will stay with a partner that is not good for you socially, but spiritually. They are providing relief from all of the work you need to face to own your life and be responsible for yourself. You get to feel good about yourself while blaming everybody else for mirroring you to yourself for you and escaping in your mind, in your delusional mind, the reality of how this universe works. This is really, really intense video. This comes from transforming my life away from depression, substance abuse, some physical abuse, mostly emotional and verbal abuse, terrible arguments, really, really tough relationships, but wanting to know why. When it happened the second time, I wanted to know why. Where is my part in this? And it was a long journey. It took about 2 years to get to the stage where I was ready to take the next steps. What helped me step away was to realize this person just wasn't ready. Instead of living in my delusions, I did enough research to know what I needed to actually ask, to get myself in a position of knowledge and not immature emotional need and delusion, and ask some straightforward questions. If you want to know what those questions are, you can write a message in the comments. You can write to me on Facebook at Global Molecule, or I could make another video if there's enough demand, because it's a lot of information. It's difficult to understand that you have responsibility in these matters, and it's so much easier to play the victim and blame everyone else. If you're struggling in a relationship, even with family members, work, or romantic relationships, get in touch and let me give you the power to see your own responsibility, to know where you can make change to create a better life for you without attacking anyone else. Thank you so much for watching this intense video, this beautiful heartfelt video. If you'd like to like or subscribe or leave a comment, please feel free. That's how you support this channel. My name is Ramsey Jordan, and thank you so much for listening till the end. Good luck.